He built that pool with his own hands, so why did she think she had the right to throw parties in it? There are moments in life when a man just wants to breathe, not survive, not grind, just breathe. For Tyrone Whitaker, that moment came on a warm Friday morning in Macon, Georgia, after 3 decades in uniform. He'd given his life to the force, most of it spent in Kansas City, breaking up fights, answering midnight calls, dodging politics, and mentoring rookies who didn't know their taser from their radio. But all that was behind him now. He stood in the middle of his freshly mowed backyard, hands on his hips, looking out at the pool he built with his own 2 hands. Not a fancy one, no waterfall or swim-up bar, just clean blue water, bordered by smooth concrete, shaded by a couple crepe myrtles. Peace. That's all he wanted. Lord, I earned this, he muttered, wiping a bead of sweat from his forehead. He walked back toward the house, feeling the quiet wrap around him like a well-worn hoodie. No sirens, no radios, no gun belt digging into his waist. Just the slow creak of the screen door and the sound of cicadas kicking up in the trees. Tyrone had moved back to Riverside Hills, the same neighborhood he grew up in during the 70s. It wasn't flashy, just decent people, wide streets, and old brick homes with history in the walls. Some of the old neighbors were still around, folks who remembered him as Tiny Ty, back when he used to run around barefoot chasing frogs in the ditch. But the place had changed too. Across the fence, next door, lived Melanie Covington. White lady, mid-50s, sharp features, always wore these oversized sunglasses like she was hiding from the paparazzi. Except, nobody was looking for her. Her family had been in the neighborhood for years, back when her late husband was alive, and the Covingtons were the unofficial mayor and first lady of the block. Tyrone never had a problem with her. Didn't know her well, and honestly didn't care to. He minded his business, watered his lawn, cooked his ribs on Sundays, waved when it was polite, nodded when it wasn't. First few weeks were smooth. She kept her distance, he kept his, until that Monday morning. Tyrone had driven down to Warner Robins for breakfast with an old buddy, came back around 10 a.m., turned into his driveway, and something immediately felt off. The gate to his backyard was wide open, and from the other side of the house, voices, laughing. He crept around the side, slow, careful, out of habit. And there they were, 2 teenage girls in bikinis floating in his pool like it was the public YMCA. He stopped in his tracks. They didn't even flinch. "Excuse me?" he said, voice calm but firm. One of the girls, freckles, red hair, glanced up like she was mildly inconvenienced. "Oh, hey," she said. "We're almost done." Tyrone blinked. Almost done? Before he could say another word, the back door to Melanie's house opened, and out she came, holding a tray of lemonade like she was hosting a garden party. "Girls," she called out, "don't stay too long, remember? Your mom's coming at 11. Then she looked up and saw Tyrone. Her smile faltered. "Oh, hi, I didn't know you were back." Tyrone took a breath, slow and deliberate. "Yeah, I'm back. What's going on here?" Melanie blinked behind her glasses. "They just wanted to cool off. It's hot, you know. Figured you wouldn't mind." That was it, just like that, like he was the guest in her backyard. He stood there for a second, words stuck in his throat. "I do mind," he said quietly. "Next time, you ask." Melanie rolled her eyes and gave him this little wave like she was swatting a mosquito. "It's just water, relax." She turned and walked off before he could say another word. The girls kept floating. But Tyrone didn't forget. Tyrone didn't sleep right that night. He wasn't angry in the shouting, breaking things kind of way. It was the slow burn, the kind that sits behind your ribs and simmers, the kind you learn to live with after years of biting your tongue just to keep the peace. The next morning, he installed a latch on the backyard gate. Solid one, stainless steel. Then he added a motion-activated camera above the garage, angled right at the fence line. Not because he was paranoid, but because he knew better. Folks don't always learn the first time. Sometimes you've got to teach them with receipts. That evening, he called his cousin Denise, a lawyer down in Savannah. "She used your property without permission," Denise said plainly. "That's trespassing. And if her little guests get hurt in that pool, guess who they're coming after?" Tyrone already knew. Me. Exactly. He thanked her, hung up, and leaned back in his chair, staring out the window at the backyard. At his pool. He'd poured the concrete himself, with the help of a retired contractor he met through church. He didn't just buy that backyard, he built it. Every shovel of dirt, every bead of sweat. And some lady next door thought it was hers to share? 2 weeks passed without incident. Melanie kept to herself. Tyrone figured maybe she got the message. Maybe embarrassment worked better than a lecture. But then a Saturday rolled around, one of those hot Georgia afternoons where the air hangs heavy and sticky like syrup. Tyrone was inside, watching a ball game with a glass of sweet tea when his phone pinged. Motion detected. Backyard camera 1. He opened the app. There she was, Melanie, in broad daylight, in a black one-piece swimsuit, flip-flops, and that same smug expression. She unlocked the new latch with a little tool from her pocket. He rewound the footage 3 times just to be sure, and strolled right in like she was headed to her own pool party. She sat on one of the lounge chairs and pulled out a book, not even a towel under her, just claiming the space like she'd bought it. Tyrone's jaw clenched. He didn't go outside. Not yet. Instead, he hit record on the camera feed and let it roll. 23 minutes later, she dipped her feet in the water, flipped a page and sighed like she was on vacation in the Keys. Then she did the unthinkable. She got in. Not a toe dip. Not a cautious wade. She got all the way in. Tyrone stood by the window, arms crossed, watching her float on her back like she was proud of herself. A minute later, his phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text from Calvin, a neighbor 2 doors down. "Hey, man, is that your neighbor in your pool, again?" Tyrone replied, "Yep, got it on camera." Calvin responded with one word, "Wow." At that moment, something shifted in Tyrone. He wasn't embarrassed anymore, wasn't confused. He was focused. This wasn't about water or heat or convenience. It was about entitlement. The quiet, smug kind. The kind that walks into your yard without asking and dares you to say something about it. So, Tyrone waited. He let Melanie finish her little dip, towel off, and walk her dripping self right back through the gate. She locked it back like nothing happened. The camera caught it all. That evening, Tyrone printed the footage on paper and saved the video to a thumb drive. He placed both in a folder, slid it into a drawer by the kitchen, and labeled it in black marker, Covington Incidents, Summer 25. The next morning, he started digging. He called the county office, checked property lines, pulled up the community bylaws, reread the Georgia trespassing laws, all of it. Not because he wanted to fight, but because he refused to be quiet in his own home. Later that day, he ran into Melanie near the curb while checking the mail. "Afternoon," she said casually. Tyrone nodded. "You enjoy the pool?" She laughed. "It's just water, Ty. Don't be so uptight." He looked her in the eye. "You ever step foot in my yard again without permission, we'll have a different kind of conversation, you understand?" Melanie scoffed, rolled her eyes. "Whatever. It's not that serious." Tyrone didn't say another word. He just walked back to his house, calm and steady. But in his mind, a plan had already started forming. The truth is, Tyrone didn't like conflict, never had. He wasn't a shouter, wasn't the type to bang on doors or make scenes in the middle of the street. But just because he was quiet didn't mean he was soft. People used to mistake that about him, especially when he worked patrol. He'd show up calm, collected, and some folks, especially the ones with power, took that as permission to talk slick, until they realized he had a steel backbone and receipts for everything. This situation with Melanie was no different. The following week, nothing happened. No girls in the pool, no floating book club, just stillness. The camera stayed quiet. Tyrone kept mowing his lawn, watering his tomato plants, doing small repairs on the shed, but every time he looked over at that fence, he knew she was just waiting for him to let it go. That's what people like her counted on, silence. They thrived on it. Then came Wednesday. It started like any other day, sun blazing by noon, the air heavy. Tyrone was inside prepping chicken for the grill when he heard it, the gate creaking open. He froze, checked the camera feed. There they were again. 2 teenage girls, different ones this time, laughing, giggling, hopping straight into his pool like it was summer camp. One of them even pulled out her phone and started recording herself dancing on the steps. And just like clockwork, Melanie came out a minute later with a cooler. That's when Tyrone walked outside. No yelling, no barking, just steady steps down the porch and across the yard. The girls looked up, surprised but not scared. Melanie barely flinched. "They'll only be a few minutes." "No," Tyrone said firmly, "they won't." He pointed to the camera above the garage. "That's recording, and I've got 2 weeks worth of you unlocking my gate, hosting your guests, and using my pool without asking." Melanie's mouth twitched. "I didn't host anyone. You brought them drinks. You unlocked my gate. That's trespassing." "It's not a big deal." "To you," he said. "But see, when I bought this house, I bought all of it. Not just the living room. Not just the driveway, the yard, the pool, the fence, all of it." Melanie crossed her arms, clearly annoyed now. "Why are you making this racial?" Tyrone blinked. "I didn't say a word about race. You're acting like I'm the villain. I'm acting like a homeowner." The girls had gone silent now, standing at the edge of the pool like deer in headlights. "You two," Tyrone said, turning to them. "Grab your stuff and head out. This isn't your yard, and it's not a public park." They mumbled apologies and hurried off, wrapped in towels, sandals flopping against the pavement. Melanie stayed put, still trying to wear that smug smile, but it wasn't sticking the way it used to. "Look," she said, softening her tone. "I'm just trying to be a good neighbor. The girls needed a place to cool off. What's the harm?" Tyrone took a step closer. "Being a good neighbor means respecting the people around you, not assuming you can take whatever you want because you've lived here longer. You don't ask, you don't check, you just walk in." She opened her mouth to argue, but he raised a hand. "Don't. Just think about what you'd do if it were reversed. If I walked into your yard with 2 guests and took over your space like I owned it." Melanie looked away, suddenly quiet. "From now on," Tyrone said, "you stay on your side of the fence." She didn't say anything else, just turned and left, arms stiff at her sides. Back inside, Tyrone sat down at the kitchen table and opened his laptop. He pulled up the footage, labeled the new clip, backed it up to the drive. Then he made one more call, to a friend of his who still worked in the department. "Not pressing charges," Tyrone said, "just want it documented in case things escalate." "Got you," the officer replied. "Smart move." Tyrone closed his laptop and looked back out the window at the pool, but he knew this wasn't the end. It should have ended there. Tyrone gave her the warning. He made himself clear, and for a few days, it actually felt like things had settled. The camera didn't catch anything strange. No teenagers, no surprise guests, no sign of Melanie near the fence. But peace doesn't last long when some folks feel untouchable. It was Sunday afternoon, 2 weeks after the last confrontation, when it happened again. Tyrone had just finished cleaning up the grill from a late lunch. He was about to put on a game inside when his phone lit up. Motion detected. Backyard camera 1. He opened the app, not even worried. Probably a squirrel. Maybe the wind knocking a chair over. What he saw made him stop mid-step. Melanie Covington, back in his yard, this time with a full folding table, a Bluetooth speaker, and 3 women he'd never seen before. They weren't kids. These were grown adults. One was setting up wine glasses. Another had a tray of fruit. Melanie was standing by the pool in a swimsuit cover-up, sipping something in a tall plastic cup, laughing like she was at some kind of brunch party. Tyrone stared at the screen, stunned. She had walked right back into his space again, after everything. But this time, he didn't go outside. He let the camera record, every second of it. Then he picked up the phone and called Calvin, his neighbor from 2 doors down. "You see what's going on in my yard right now?" Calvin answered instantly. "Yeah, man, I'm looking out my window. You want me to come over?" "No," Tyrone said. "Just stay on the line. I want someone else to witness what I'm about to do." He tucked the phone into his pocket, turned on the voice memo app, and stepped outside. The music cut off mid-song. The chatter stopped. All 4 women turned and looked at him like he was the one interrupting something. Melanie was the first to speak. "Oh, hey, we figured since you were inside, it'd be fine." "You figured wrong," Tyrone said, not raising his voice. He looked around slowly. At the table, the setup, the folding chairs, the women holding their wine glasses like they were at a resort. "You've officially lost your mind." One of the women chuckled nervously. "We're not causing trouble." Tyrone turned to her. "You're trespassing, all of you." Melanie stepped forward. "Ty, come on, don't be dramatic." Tyrone looked her square in the eye. "Do you realize what you're doing?" You've walked onto my property again. You brought people. You unlocked my gate again. You didn't call, didn't ask. You just came in, set up shop. It's not that deep, she muttered, eyes flicking to her guests. It's exactly that deep. One of the other women whispered something to Melanie, and Tyrone caught it. He said you had permission. His eyes narrowed. You told them I gave you permission? Melanie hesitated. I said we'd done this before and you didn't make it a big deal. You lied. Now the air was thick with tension. Nobody moved. The Bluetooth speaker sat silent on the concrete. A wine glass clinked against the folding table. I've got all of you on camera, right now, and audio, and I've already got a file started. So, here's what's going to happen, Tyrone said, voice calm but heavy with weight. You're going to pack up your things, right now, and you're going to leave, and you're never stepping foot in my yard again. Not for a party, not for a quick dip, not even to return a tennis ball. You understand me? One of the women nodded quickly. The others started picking up their things. Melanie just stood there, frozen. Tyrone added, and if I see you in my yard one more time, I will press charges. With video, with timestamps, and with witnesses. Melanie opened her mouth, but nothing came out. They left in silence. Folding chairs under their arms, drinks half finished, sunglasses on crooked. The party was over. Tyrone didn't smile. He didn't gloat. He just stood there and watched them walk through the gate. Back inside, he saved the footage, backed it up again, and updated the folder. Calvin called back. That was one of the wildest things I've seen in this neighborhood. Ever. I told her 3 times, Tyrone said. She thought I was bluffing. But now it was time to show her he wasn't. By Monday morning, Tyrone had made up his mind. This wasn't about water anymore. It wasn't about noise, guests, or even the pool. It was about respect, or the total lack of it. And Melanie had pushed past every boundary like none of it mattered. So he got to work. First, he called Denise again, his cousin, the lawyer in Savannah. She's still coming into your yard? She asked, baffled. Yep, Sunday. Had a full wine party going. Denise exhaled hard. Ty, at this point, you don't need to wait. You've got video, witnesses, timestamps, everything. You could file today. I'm giving her one last chance, not for her, for me. After that, gloves off. Denise paused. All right, but document everything. He did. Tyrone printed stills from the footage, logged exact times and dates, and compiled witness names, including Calvin. He made a full packet, slid it into a new envelope, and labeled it Final Warning. Then he added something else. A cease and desist letter, written under Denise's guidance. Legal tone, clear terms. No more contact, no more entry, no more excuses. But that wasn't the trap. The real trap was what he installed Tuesday morning. A new magnetic lock on the gate with a hidden trail camera facing the other direction, concealed in the hedge. And behind the pool shed, a second camera pointed toward the back porch, tucked between lattice panels. By the time he finished, there were 3 angles, all recording in 1080p. He didn't tell anyone what he was doing, not Calvin, not Denise, not even Pastor Willis when they bumped into each other at the hardware store. I'm just fixing a gate, Tyrone said with a shrug, but inside, he was loading ammo, truth, proof, silence, and time. Then he waited. Thursday came and went. Friday came and went. Saturday rolled around. Hot, humid, sweat on your neck before noon kind of weather. Tyrone pretended to leave, drove his truck around the corner and parked it on a side street, then walked back quietly through a side gate Calvin had unlocked for him ahead of time. He waited inside the house, fan blowing, camera feeds open on his phone. He didn't move, just watched. At 2:37 p.m., it happened. Melanie, alone this time. No guests, no wine. She walked straight up to the fence, looked around, and tried the latch. Locked. She pulled something from her bag, a small tool again, looked like a pocket-sized wrench, and fumbled with the lock for 20 seconds. Click. She opened it. Tyrone's phone vibrated, trail camera triggered. He watched her walk in, flip-flops on, towel slung over her shoulder. She stretched, walked up to the edge of the pool, and dipped her foot in. That's when Tyrone stepped outside. She didn't even hear him until he was standing right behind her. Don't move. She jumped like she'd been caught shoplifting, whipped around. "Oh, I didn't know you were home. You broke into my property," he said, holding up his phone, camera feed still recording. "Again." Melanie's mouth opened, then shut. "I've got you on 3 cameras, breaking the lock, entering, trespassing. You told people I gave you permission, lied to them, lied to me." She held up her hands like that would stop him. "Look, Ty, let's not blow this up. I just thought—" "You didn't think. That's the problem." Her expression shifted from fake sweet to fake confused. "I mean, honestly, you're being a little extreme. It's not like I vandalized anything." "You broke into my property," he repeated, voice firmer now. "You bypassed a lock. That's criminal trespass, Melanie, and it's on video." She blinked. "You're not really going to call the cops, are you?" Tyrone reached into his back pocket and handed her the envelope. She took it, confused, and opened it slowly. Her eyes moved across the page, photos, dates, the letter. "What is this?" "That's your final warning, from a licensed attorney. Keep that as a souvenir." Melanie's voice dropped to a whisper. "Ty, come on." "No more Ty. We're not friends. We're neighbors. And you've made it real clear you don't respect that." She stood frozen, paper trembling in her hand. "You come in my yard again," Tyrone said. "I won't be talking. I'll be filing. And there'll be no warnings left." He turned and walked back inside. But what Tyrone didn't expect was what she'd try next. It was quiet for 3 whole days. Tyrone figured maybe, just maybe, it was over. Maybe the final warning landed where all the polite conversations hadn't. He even caught himself relaxing, watered his plants, cleaned the pool filters, let his guard down. Until Tuesday. It started with a knock at the door. Not aggressive, just 3 soft knocks. Tyrone peeked through the blinds and saw Officer Bentley and Officer Salgado, both in uniform, standing on his front porch. He opened the door slowly. "Mr. Whitaker?" Bentley asked. "That's me. We got a call from a neighbor. Said there was a confrontation between you and a woman named Melanie Covington this past weekend. Said she felt threatened." Tyrone didn't flinch. "Yeah," he said. "I've been expecting this." Bentley looked surprised. "You mind if we talk inside?" Tyrone stepped aside and nodded. They walked in, calm, respectful. Not tense, but cautious, like they were trying to figure out what they'd walked into. Salgado glanced around the room. "You retired from KCPD, right?" 30 years, Tyrone said, handing over his ID and a USB stick. "Everything you need is on that drive. Multiple video clips, dates, time logs, audio. You'll find she entered my yard without permission multiple times, including unlocking a locked gate and holding unauthorized gatherings. Last visit was this past Saturday, documented, recorded, and witnessed." Bentley raised an eyebrow. "You've been keeping a file?" "I don't play about my property or my peace." They watched the videos on Tyrone's laptop. The first showed Melanie laughing in his pool. The second showed her breaking the gate lock with a tool. The third, her lying to her guests and sipping wine like she was queen of the block. "She's been warned," Tyrone added, "legally, on papers. I've got a cease and desist filed through my cousin, Denise Kerrigan, attorney in Savannah." The officers sat back. "Honestly," Salgado said, "this is more than most folks do. You've covered yourself." Bentley nodded. "We're going to write this up. There's no sign of any threat or confrontation that would hold up as harassment, at least not from your end." "Appreciate it," Tyrone said. Before leaving, Bentley added, "We might reach out to Ms. Covington for a statement, but off the record, looks like she picked the wrong one." They left, and Tyrone exhaled, not with relief, with clarity. This wasn't over. Melanie hadn't just trespassed, she had tried to flip the script, paint herself as the victim, call the cops first, hoping they'd see a black man standing his ground and assume the worst. It stung. Not because he didn't expect it, but because he knew how dangerous that kind of move could be. The next day, he got a knock on the door again, but this time it wasn't the police. It was Mr. Waller, a soft-spoken man from the Neighborhood Association board, holding a folder. "Mind if I come in?" Tyrone offered him a seat. Waller cleared his throat. "I'll get straight to it. Ms. Covington sent a complaint to the board, claimed you've been aggressive, intimidating, and, her words, territorial. Says it's creating tension on the block." Tyrone didn't react. He handed him a second copy of the same USB. Here, before you get too deep into her version of things, watch that. Mr. Waller slid on his glasses, opened the laptop, and began watching. After 5 minutes, he leaned back, let out a slow whistle. She didn't mention any of this. She wouldn't, Tyrone said quietly, because it makes her look like what she is. Waller nodded. We've had a few complaints about her over the years. Nothing major, just little things, petty arguments, HOA line crossing. He tapped the table. You've done everything by the book. I'll be filing a statement with the board. If she continues, we'll escalate it from our side as well. Tyrone thanked him. That evening, he finally allowed himself to sit in the backyard, alone, feet in the water, sunset fading over the trees, and for the first time in weeks, silence. No splashing, no laughter from strangers, just still air and his thoughts. The next morning, something unexpected happened. A knock on the door. Again. He opened it slowly. Melanie, no sunglasses, no wine cup, just her, standing small, with a yellow envelope in her hand. I came to apologize, she said softly. Tyrone didn't say anything. I didn't realize how far I'd gone, or how it must have looked. I was wrong. You had every right to be upset. Still, Tyrone waited. I spoke with someone from the board, and the police. I know now this could have gone very differently if you weren't who you are, and that scares me. Tyrone took the envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter. No excuses, just acknowledgement, and a note offering to replace the broken gate lock. I'll stay on my side, she added, from now on. He nodded. You should have done that from the beginning. Melanie turned and walked away without another word, but Tyrone knew the lesson wasn't for her alone. A week later, the neighborhood felt different, not because it had changed, but because Tyrone wasn't carrying the weight anymore. He wasn't looking over his shoulder, wasn't waiting for the gate to creak open. He'd done what needed doing. He held the line, and people noticed. Calvin dropped by with ribs, just showed up, grinning. You know, he said, handing over a foil tray, you did something a lot of folks around here wouldn't have had the nerve to do. I didn't do it for them, Tyrone replied, taking the tray. I did it so I could sleep. But they saw it, all of it, Calvin said. Some of them were watching to see if you'd lose it. Blow up, do something reckless. But you didn't. That's what she wanted, Tyrone said. She wasn't just testing boundaries, she was testing me, seeing how far she could go before I snapped. Calvin nodded. And when you didn't, that hit her harder than anything else you could have done. Later that evening, Tyrone walked the block, said hello to folks sitting on porches, watering flowers, walking dogs. Some waved longer than usual. Some gave a nod of respect. No one mentioned Melanie, but they didn't have to. She hadn't set foot outside her house in days. Tyrone didn't gloat. He didn't celebrate. He just kept doing what he always did. Kept his lawn clean, his fence locked, and his peace intact. And maybe that was the part that shook her most. Because people like Melanie don't expect the quiet ones to win. They expect them to fold, to stay silent, to avoid causing trouble. But there comes a time when a person has to choose. Dignity over comfort, truth over quiet, boundaries over approval. Tyrone chose all three. He wasn't the loudest, but he was steady. He was sharp. And most of all, he was done letting other people write the rules in his own yard. He didn't need Melanie to become his friend. He didn't even need her to like him. All he needed was for her to respect the fence. And now, she finally did. Life doesn't always hand you peace. Sometimes, you have to build it, protect it, stand firm in it, even when people test you, underestimate you, or push you to break. Tyrone didn't break. And that became the story folks remembered. Not just that she trespassed, but that he stood still, that he didn't let someone else's arrogance drag him down, that he reminded everybody, quietly but clearly, that being calm doesn't mean being weak. If you've ever had someone cross your line, at work, at home, in your spirit, remember Tyrone, you don't need to shout, you just need to hold the line. Document, prepare, then act with purpose. Because peace isn't given, it's enforced. Don't ever be afraid to draw that line. And once you draw it, don't let anyone erase it. If this story reminded you of something you've lived through or something you stood up to, share it in the comments. You never know who your words might empower. And if you respect the way Tyrone handled this, hit that like button, subscribe for more stories that speak truth, and remember, sometimes the strongest voice is the one that stays calm.